So, to celebrate Sukkot, the joy of Sukkot, I prepared a great sermon for tonight. But I'm not telling it to you. Not because there was something that happened the other day, and one of my teachers wrote about this incident, and I'm just so compelled to share it with you. It's not a happy story, to say the least. And on some level, I feel a little bit badly that Sukkot is supposed to be the time of celebrating, the most joyous of times. It's an incredible time, but sometimes we have to speak some truths, and we have to figure out how do we move forward with some of these truths. So I'm going to share a message from a professor at the Hebrew Union College in Jerusalem, the Jerusalem campus. His name is Michael Marmer. And Michael is an incredible, teacher of theology. He's an expert in modern Jewish thought. And he's an incredible, thoughtful person. But he's also the chairperson of an organization called Rabbis for Human Rights. And he was, along with some other volunteers, working in a Palestinian village. I'm going to share his words with you, trying to help folks pick olives for a harvest and try and to be kind of a human shield and protect some of these folks, these Palestinians, from potential harm. And one of the rabbis that were there, his name is Moshe Yehudai, was attacked. And they broke his arm and hit him in the head and carried him off. The ambulance came and brought him to a hospital. And the folks that attacked him were other Jews. And it's just so shameful. And it's so sad. But the message is so compelling that I need to share it with you. His words, I think, are profound and nuanced and important for us to really hear, even at a time of celebration. So a little bit into his message to other colleagues and friends, he wrote on Wednesday, Rabbi Moshe Yehudai participated in our Rabbis for Human Rights olive harvest activity. Our aim is to help out harvesting the olives, and there's a window of a few weeks in which all of the olives must be gathered, and also provide a kind of a human shield, disincentivizing elements within the Jewish settler community who often interfere with their neighbors' efforts to harvest their crops and live their lives. This is the point of such descriptions, in which it is the traditional thing to point out how complex the situation is in this area, how there have been acts of Palestinian terror perpetrated on innocent Israelis, and other such mitigating factors. But I want to emphasize that for those who spent even a small amount of time on the scene, one commonly witnesses acts of brutality, stupidity, and oppression perpetrated in the name of Judaism and the Jewish people, devoid of any security justification. Here's one appreciation of nuance. Here one's appreciation of nuance should reach its limit. Here, there is a wrong to be exposed and condemned. A number of mass Jewish settlers, apparently teenagers, swept down from the direction of Yitzhar, roughed up a number of our volunteers, and set fire to olive trees. Such fires are not uncommon in the West Bank during the olive harvest season. I was there today and witnessed 2 of them with my own eyes. On Wednesday, they pelted the 80-year-old Israeli rabbi Moshe Yehudai, who I mentioned before. They pelted him with stones, broke his arm by hitting him with an iron bar as he sought to protect himself, ignored his plea for humanity, and left him close to the flaming trees. Our volunteers, other partners, and Palestinian locals saved him, eventually bringing him to an Israeli ambulance. I had an opportunity to visit Moshe in Meir Hospital in Kfar Saba shortly after he was admitted and before he received medical attention. In the days since this event, a number of news outlets have implied that Moshe's injuries were staged. By the way, I saw the video and pictures of him. This is, how shall I put this, a lie. It is spread by those who find it impossible to believe that such actions take place, or by those who know that they do but don't want you to know about them. Moshe is recuperating at home, and it appears that with time his wounds will heal. We have not stopped showing up at the harvest, although attempts have been made to curtail our presence. Today, not far from the place where Moshe was attacked, the army declared the place we arrived at to help Muhammad, a local farmer, a closed military area. So we left, and we'll be appealing the legality of this decision next week in a judicial context. But after we were cleared out of the olive grove, we traveled a few kilometers to another. For a few hours today, I had the privilege of harvesting olives with gentle and noble Palestinian neighbors, and this is the most resonant Sukkot activity I could think of undertaking. I learned from Idris about his wife and 7 children, and about his hopes and dreams for the future. We looked around from time to time to see if we were going to be attacked or disturbed, but we were not. Neither Idris nor the volunteers who came to help him have any interest in provoking his settler neighbors or in undermining their security. The security card is played often, but it cannot be an eternal trump card. In fact, the aggressors in this particular drama are Jewish hotheads, motivated by a cocktail of ideology, encouragement, boredom, and testosterone. If the truth of my fellow Jews who attacked my friend Moshe and those who shield them is true, then my truth is a lie. If the only future for Israel is one of chauvinism and intimidation, then our crisis is one of the most profound our people has ever known. Most of the people I know respond to the continued reality of the kind of things I've described here in one of 3 ways: despair, denial, or defiance. The despair option is clear and tempting. It's all a lost cause. The internal dynamic of the occupation, that shabby dance between the settlers, the politicians, the Palestinians, and the security forces, is bound to continue, and nothing will change. The deniers, with their close relations, the deflectors, insist that posts such as mine are false and misleading, and that we should emphasize Israel's high-tech miracle and the success of our gymnasts. Or we should watch reality TV shows and plan our vacations. There's a response of defiance, accusing people like me of naivete or ill will, reminding us that the Middle East is a tough and unrelenting neighborhood, that Iran is at the door, and that there's no partner for peace, and that the production of omelets requires the breaking of the occasional egg. I understand, says Michael Marmer, I understand the despairers, the deniers, the deflectors, and the defiers. I can make a case for each of them. But if we dare to imagine a future in which the project of Jewish sovereignty can end in something other than decay, we ought to resist each of these approaches. Idris and his family have to get the olives harvested, and Muhammad too. Rabbi Yehudai has to heal, and his Torah of peace must not be silenced. I, and you too, if you care to do so, have to find a response which eschews despair, denial, or defiance. I don't pretend to know what that response will be, or that if this or that politician gets in, all will be well. The problems of our world are bigger than our current solutions, but as someone irrevocably wedded to the project of Judaism and the Jewish people as my way of being a person and making a difference, I'm pretty sure that our response over the next years and decades will provide the walls and foliage of our Sukkot, our tabernacles, the infrastructure of our identities, the viability of our Judaism, the guarantee of our humanity. He continues and he says, I get it. There is anti-Semitism, and the next Middle East war is probably close, and in any case, the planet is in crisis. I get it. There are so many other things to worry about and so many wrongs to be righted. I get it. We are worried that if we admit that bad things are happening, we will lose market share. And I get it. It would be so much easier just to watch the game. But the genius of Judaism has usually involved facing up to unpalatable truths and paradigm shifts. And in case there is any doubt, I'm so awestruck by the miracle of Israel that I refuse to let it be squandered. The Jewish boys who set fire to their neighbors' olive trees also put our Judaism to the test. The power structures which allow them to get away with it, there may yet be convictions, but don't hold your breaths, will only be changed if together we can come up with a new response to this most depressing and unsettling reality. If you think that these words are evidence of anti-Israel sentiment, I think you're wrong. 2,700 years ago, the prophet Amos looked to a time when the fallen sukkah of David will be rebuilt and the land around us possessed. Well, we now possess the land. To keep our sukkah alive in this day, we have to find a way of celebrating our neighbors' efforts to build for themselves the lives of dignity and freedom we wish for ourselves. We must not burn them down. We must build them up. Those are the words from Michael Marmer, again, a professor at the Hebrew Union College of the Reform Movement's graduate school and seminary, and an incredible teacher, a world expert on Abraham Joshua Heschel, and I think he shares a truth, a letter that we can think about like other letters that came from the South and talked about a civil rights truth. Here's another kind of a truth, and sometimes it makes us uneasy. But here is a man who made Aliyah to join the Jewish people in the state of Israel and build a Jewish state that isn't just about a majority of Jews, but a Jewish state that has Jewish values and how it's going to be governed. And an incident like this is unacceptable. It's unacceptable by Jews or among human beings. Burning down olive trees, hitting an 80-year-old man with an iron bar as an act of protest? Please. How do we respond all the way from here? Well, there's a few ways that I want to tell you about really quickly. You can pick the organization of your choice, because that is an accessible and an easy way, whether it's Rabbis for Human Rights in Israel, or the Israel Religious Action Center, or the New Israel Fund, or Women of the Wall, and try and talk about how there are other ways to be Jewish, and we believe in pluralism and power and rule of law and democracy. I can tell you about all of those organizations, and they're powerful and significant, and they need our help to make sure that in Israel stays democratic and secure, both, not one or the other. But there's also an idea of not forgetting about Israel, not leaving it for others, believing that a Zionism can still be one that is filled with justice, a progressive notion of the dignity of the human being, and a Jewish state that protects the rights of all, including those who aren't citizens but are under Israeli rule. How do we find that balance? I am not willing to give up my space of hope. And I've taught over and over again, I think Israel and the enterprise of a Jewish state and the land of Israel is the embodiment of our hope, which is how I know that this can be resolved. This can be solved. I'll pray in my lifetime. Sometimes I'm not so sure. But I won't let our own house, fundamentalists in our own house, take Israel away from us. I don't think that would be right or just or ethical or fair. So I'm sharing a picture that isn't pretty, but I do think that there are responses. There is a way to look at our sukkah and see that too as a place filled with hope, which is why the sukkah is used as an image of a hopeful world in our future. Over and over again, it's the sukkah. We can help build that Israel, even from here. And we're going to continue to share how you're going to do so. And I hope that we continue to strengthen the connection with the folks in Ramat HaNegev, both the Reform community and the sister city of Boulder. I hope that there'll be more folks from our congregation that goes to our community-wide trip to Israel, because we have to understand in Israel and walk there and be inspired there, and at the same time, sometimes with love, share the challenge and the critique and speak out and condemn when there are others who are not representing our faith faithfully. That's what I needed to share with you. I can tell you more about Michael Marmer and what he's doing with Rabbis for Human Rights, an organization founded by one of my teachers, another teacher, David Foreman. May his memory be a blessing. And there's ways that we can be partners, because that's what I think Zionism is about. Partners in the building of the state of Israel. And I don't think the building is over yet, but it's not about roads and playgrounds the way it once was. It's about its democracy. It's about its issues around rights. It's about bridging economic gaps, advancing the status of women in Israel, and yes, Jewish-Arab coexistence. That's what I hope we can celebrate in our sukkah next year. So let's move toward our conclusion. Aleinu